Of my previous video on Stealthwatch, where did we leave in the previous video? I think we kind of connected my flow collector to my SMC, right? And after that, obviously, I have played around with the SMC for quite some time, so probably you will see some extra you will see some extra panels appearing on the SMC and stuff like that, but I'll take you through that because it's very difficult to record a video on Stealthwatch without some actual traffic, right? So I had to do a bit of configuration to bring some little bit of traffic to show you some cool stuff about Stealthwatch. Okay, so first thing first, let's go back here, right? Let's go down to my central management probably. Sorry, did I go to a wrong place? Let's go back here. Let's go to central management, and here we should see, we can see both my flow collector and SMC, and both the appliance status should be up, right? So that's mainly with respect to these two guys. So all of them appears to be good. Now the next thing is, before we play around anything with SMC, with the Stealthwatch, we need to enable Netflow on the devices, right? Now enabling Netflow is very important because without Netflow, our Stealthwatch will not have any traffic to analyze, right? And enabling Netflow is very easy as well on the devices, but things you need to remember is you need to make sure that you do your Netflow design in a very careful way so that you don't have duplicate flows. At the same time, you shouldn't overload your flow collectors with a lot of Netflow information, right? You might end up running out of licenses, and you might also end up, if you enable Netflow at wrong places, you might end up choking your network with only Netflow, right? So it's kind of like I would say it's recommended that you enable Netflow generally in the ingress, right, direction, right, to avoid some unnecessary CPU utilization if you do it on the egress, right? So ingress is generally preferred, but flows can be bidirectional, right? So you need to engineer it in a nice way and in a very efficient way. I'll show you a few designs here, but then we will obviously be going and enabling it on the gigabit 1 interface, or actually I have already enabled it, but let me show you some designs here. So when you talk about internet edges, right, in your traditional network, when you talk about internet edges, imagine this is your internet here, and you have a edge router, right, say R1, and you have your firewall here, and you have probably R2 and maybe a switch. Now in such scenario, it's generally recommended to enable Netflow where over here. Reason is because this will help you capture the traffic which has already bypassed the firewall, right? So if you enable Netflow here, what happens is you will basically be sending the traffic which has bypassed the firewall for like a second level of investigation, right? So it's always good to do over there. If you have, think of it like if you have this thing, what is that? GRE tunnels, right? Maybe you have a router somewhere here, maybe R3, and you have a GRE or a VPN, basically a VPN connection going from R3 to say R2 like this, right? So in such case, I would suggest you to enable Netflow where in the ingress here on this interface. In fact, reason being, this is the interface where you'll basically be getting all unencrypted traffic, right, in this direction as well as this direction, right? So R2 will be decrypting the traffic from the tunnel and sending it to the switch, as well as the switch will be sending the traffic at this place will be unencrypted. So it's very very clear for us to capture as much as information possible from the interface if you enable it over here, right? So apart from that, if you again talk about, probably let's get rid of this. If you talk about your traditional headquarters and branch design, right, it's going to be something like this. So this is your headquarters, right, and you will have a router here, and you will have a switch, and probably this will be connected outside to the internet, right? So in such case, I would suggest enabling Netflow here. The reason being, if you have a branch, multiple branches, then there's a high tendency you might be running something like a DMVPN setup, right? So the traffic flowing on this particular interface will be encrypted, right? So if you enable it somewhere here, then you'll probably be looking at encrypted traffic, and it might not give you the complete information in the Netflow, right? So enabling it here is a very good, I would say, a best practice kind of a thing, and this kind of applies even on the branch side as well, right? Enabling it on this interface in the ingress once the traffic has been decrypted, right? So that those are like few designs. If you are really trying this out in your actual network, you could probably think of those. That being said, in our network, we are basically going to enable on the interface. Where is the interface? We're going to enable it here. We're going to enable it here on the gigabit 1 interface, right? Cool. Before we look at the actual configuration, let me tell you there are actually like 3 pieces to the Netflow configuration, right? One is your, remember always this, right? It's going to be a record. Second one is going to be our, I believe it's exporter. And the third one is your monitor. Now, Netflow can be enabled on your switch, your router, your AC, right? Firepower, and like such multiple, appliances, even third-party appliances. Some of them support Netflow, right? But anyways, you can enable it on all these guys, but probably the configuration is going to be slightly different depending on the operating systems. But these are like 3 important pieces which you should always remember. Now in the record part of the config, what we do is we put in the match statements and we put the collect statement. The match statement will tell what are the fields which has to be exported. Collect statements will tell what are the counters which has to be exported, right? So that's the record part. Export per configuration is where we put the destination IP, which is the flow collector IP, right? And the monitor is basically something which will combine these two, or it will bind the record and exporter to a particular interface. And you will see me doing this, or I'll show you the configuration which I've done on the interface, right? So that's a quick understanding of the structure of the Netflow config, right, on the boxes. So let's quickly go down to my router. Yeah, there you go. So let me show you. Let's do show run. I think section flow should work. Yeah, there you go. So we have the flow record section here, and you can see the one which I'm highlighting. We have some match statements. We are matching on the protocol, source address, destination address, the source port, destination port, right, and the interface name and all of that, right? So that's your match statements, and those are the fields which will be exported as part of Netflow. And the collect statements are some kind of counters. It's basically counting the number of bytes, packets, also collecting the timestamp values, right, and all of that. So DHCP values and so on. So that's your match and collect part, and that goes under your flow record. The second is your flow exporter, and that's your that's where you define the destination where you want to send your flows to, which is our flow collector, which is 192.168.1.3, right? Also, I'm defining the source interface, which is gigabit 1. Then you have your flow monitor, right, which I'm defining here, and you can see me enabling what I've done here. Yeah, this is correct. So we have enabled the flow monitor, and you can see I have attached the exporter to it. I've attached the recorder to it, or flow record to it, right? So that's why I said monitor is the guy who attaches, or who kind of connects these both guys. And finally, you go to the interface. If I do show run interface gig 1, you'll see me. I would have enabled the IP flow monitor. Pretty simple, right? So that's how you enable. So now I actually have like a small script which is generating some chunky traffic on my client. So just so that we see a little bit of data at least. But ideally, you will have to probably like baseline your network for like 7 days for Stealthwatch to learn a lot about your network, right? Otherwise, you will not get good information out of Stealthwatch. So that's the recommended stuff. Awesome. So okay, we just enabled it, but probably did I show you a couple of show commands? We could look at some show commands. We'll look at show flow monitor, and let's put the monitor. There you go, right? So it shows some information about the flow monitor which we have enabled. We also can see some statistics. We can do show flow monitor stats. Okay, I have to mention the stats, right? There you go. So right, we can see the flows which were added, the flows which were sent out, right, to my flow collector. You can see all of that information here. Awesome. So So we've got, so we have enabled the Netflow, which is very much like a prerequisite, or it's a mandatory thing. The other thing is, let me show you a quick tool. It's hosted here, configure.netflow.info. Looks like a open source tool which anyone can use to generate the Netflow configurations, right? So you can select whichever platform you want. In my case, let's say CSR, save and continue. I can, if I want ETA, I can enable it, and I can say click on show me flow config, and it is going to give you all the flow configuration which you would need to enable on the device, right? So you can see the config here. You can also go one step ahead and define your flow collector values like 190 to 168 and stuff here. And if you generate this here, you would basically get the complete flow configuration which you can put on your box without having to do anything, right? So, but again, don't blindly do it. Just use this tool as a reference, because I'm not sure which operating system they are targeting in this particular tool. So if there is some changes in the future, maybe it might not work. Okay, so that being said, so that's about all your Netflow stuff. Let's go to the Stealthwatch now. Most of the tabs or the widgets which you see here are self-explanatory, right? So you can see some stuff here. You can see the various the traffic. The stealth flow collector is sending some traffic, so you can see all of that here coming up. You can see the various top applications. If there are some alarms, they would appear here. You can go down to interfaces, one of my most favorite stuff, where you get to see information such as the utilization of the interface. So Stealthwatch you don't have to use only for security, you can use it for other stuff as well, right? So you can see here it shows you it shows you information regarding the interfaces, right? Utilization, inbound, outbound, and stuff like that. Apart from that, we could probably we could also do a filtering here. I mean, when you have a lot of big network and with a lot of flow collectors, it really makes sense. If you want to see the statistics only from one particular flow collector, you can select that and you can apply, and this would get refreshed, right? Anyway, so this is the flow exporter information, right? So we have just one of it, so that's why you can see the same IP repeating here. But if you have multiple of them, then you would see different ones here, right? Cool. So that being said, now coming to some other cool stuff to be done on Stealthwatch. When using Stealthwatch, right, you can let's go back to the landing page. So when using Stealthwatch, you can use Stealthwatch in two ways. One is you can use the web GUI over here, just like how I am using, or you can also download what we call as a Java client. Now the Java client I've already downloaded. It doesn't seem to work on my PC because my PC is a 32-bit machine, and I think this one works in 64-bit Windows machine. So probably I'll not be able to show you the Java client. But I would say there is a lot of majority of it can be done using web GUI, right? And I think of late people rarely use the Java client, and unless you have to do something with the maps and stuff, otherwise majority of the time you use the web GUI. On the web GUI, like I said, all of this is pretty straightforward. You can see the various flows. I think I've enabled, probably it's been 1 hour or probably a couple of hours since I enabled it, so that's why you can see a couple of things. If you keep this for probably a week or so, you'll see very good visualizations here. That being said, let's go and check on the monitor section. In the host section, let's see what we have. So on the host section, there you go, right? So we have a bunch of stuff appearing. You can see this 190 to 168, 1.2 and 1.3, they are my flow collectors and flow my SMC, right? These two anyway. But you can see this is my 190 to 168 1.100, which is my DNS server, and it is getting an CA index, right? And this is my client, which still doesn't have a CI index because it still needs CI basically stands for concern index, right? You can see here. So host concern index basically means that it is it's just a threshold value which is defined by Stealthwatch to figure out if a device is healthy or not, right? So if the values cross a certain threshold, right, then that is how you kind of categorize a device to be unhealthy or a malicious device, right? That being said, So that's your CI index, and generally you come and filter it based on whichever has the highest value and start triaging from there. Apart from that, we'll come back to this probably later. Let's do a bit of configuration. Let's go to what we call as the host group management. Now I think I've already done it, but at least I can show it to you guys. So on the host group management, what you can do is you can organize your host, right? And why do we do this? We do this because we need to tell Stealthwatch about what kind of hosts are present in my network, right? So that Stealthwatch really knows that the DNS, or the DHCP offers coming from a particular host is guaranteed, right? It's something like, imagine you have a host in your network which is continuously sending out DHCP offer messages, and to make things worse, let's assume that is not even a DHCP server, or that is not a legitimate DHCP server. So it appears that someone basically got a DHCP and connected it to the network and is now offering DHCP addresses. So it could be creating some kind of a man-in-the-middle attack and stuff like that. So to prevent that, you would want Stealthwatch to have as much as visibility into your network. So this is what you do. So in my case, what I've done is you go to the inside, you basically go down to the inside host, right? And you can, like for example, let's pick one, right? So I think I've configured what I call DNS, right? So let's see, where is DNS? Yeah, there you go. So on the DNS side, you can see I can anytime edit it, right? And I can put the IP address of my DNS server. In my case, it is 192.168.1.100, and I've added it here. If I want, I can add more IP addresses. I can add a range and stuff like that, right? So it's nothing to save because I have not done anything. I did not change anything. Similarly, you can add your NTP. I think I've added NTP as well, right? There you go. My NTP is here. Then I think I've also added what we call, let's see. Let me just get rid of this. Give me a second. Okay, I think it's a bit stuck. Let's do this again. So I think for my 192.168.1.10, I think I've added that guy to be my trusted employee user, if I'm not wrong. Okay, it's stuck. Interesting. But that's a very important configuration, because this is how we are telling Stealthwatch what kind of a, let's go back here. Let's go to host group management. That's how we are telling Stealthwatch about what kind of a host or what kind of a device is, we are connecting. So here you can see in the client IP ranges, trusted users. Okay. In the trusted wired user, you can see we have the 192.168.1.10, which is my IP, which is my PC, right? So I've added this. So I'm basically giving Stealthwatch as much as information as possible, so that if it detects some anomalous behavior, it can alert it to me, right? Cool. Next is the other important piece here is you look at the flow search, right? The analyzing the flow is a very important part of Stealthwatch. So here you have a lot of filters. You can look at the top applications. You can look at the time range and stuff like that. Let's quickly show you an example. I'm going to select my 192.168.1.10/24, which is my host. And here I can select what kind of traffic I want to look at, probably HTTP. Select the 4 ones. There you go. And I'm going to probably check in the last 5 minutes, maybe search. All right, looks like probably that filter was very less, so that's why it's just showing me only one particular entry. Probably let me just go and edit it and increase this to, I don't know, maybe like last 30 minutes probably, or last 1 hour, maybe that is better. Let's click on that. So probably it should show more flows now. There you go, showing a bit of more flows. You can see my this is my client, right, which is talking to the outside world, right? It's talking to a lot of IPs here. Now what I can do really here is I can probably click on, see there is something called Ireland here. If I'm interested in understanding what my client is doing, I can click on these 3 dots. I can go to the external lookups, and I can use one of these engines, right? I can use Talos. Talos is like the Cisco's internal, security engine, right? Which it's basically, Talos is a big BU with a lot of cool security engineers who work on figuring out what are the latest, what are the latest threats, right? Which are seen on the internet. And you can see here, what do we have? We have the IP, and it basically looks like it belongs to Amazon, right? AWS, and you can see the host name starts with EC2. So appears like, and you can see the web reputation is neutral, so doesn't seem very malicious to me. So you can do something like that, right? You can connect back to the Talos engine. You can also connect to the OpenDNS Investigate. We talked about OpenDNS Investigate, especially the Umbrella Investigate, in my previous Umbrella video. So if you have an Umbrella account, then you can use that also to investigate about a particular IP and figure out, more information. It's basically a reconnaissance, right? All right. So what else? I can probably do on this side, I can do what we call as, again, a lookup, right? Especially I can do host report. So it's basically going to take me here, and it will show me the various, the whole complete flow chart of what is happening with this host, right? You can see here it is trying to talk to a bunch of different probably HTTP servers, web servers on the internet in different countries, right? So you can see that information here. You can filter it as you want. At the bottom right now, there's not much information, right? Because I just started the traffic generation. But if you keep this for like a day or probably a couple of days and stuff, you should start seeing a lot of application traffic visible over as, right? So that's mainly the other part. The other interesting thing is, probably let me show you that as well. Something which I use regularly. So if I go to flow search, so I showed you how you can select something. What if I want to exclude something? So that's pretty simple as well. I can do not, and I can do I think it's 80. Give me a second. Yeah, I think it's 80/TCP, right? So if I do this, what it is going to do is it is going to color it in black, which means now if I hit the search button, it is going to show me all the traffic except the port 80 or HTTP traffic, right? So I can use the not filter as well to filter out the flows. So that's pretty much it, right? We talked a little bit about some of the important dashboards, like the monitor dashboard. On the monitor dashboard, how you can look at the host groups. If you're connecting, if you're integrating Stealthwatch with ICE, you will be able to look at the user activity as well. We looked at the flow exporter interfaces. On the analyze part, we looked at flow search, right? I'm not going to get deeper into this part because it's again a lengthy session, but you are free to explore this section. We configured a little bit today. We configured what did we configure? We configured the host management group. The other thing is, probably let me also show you, there's another interesting aspect I think we discussed in the previous video, the CTA and ETA, right? You would have heard about that. Let me just write it down again so that you can get an idea, right? So there are two interesting pieces. One is the CTA and the other one is the ETA. You probably would have heard this in many white papers and blogs. CTA is the cognitive threat analytics. It's basically a cloud engine, right? Stealthwatch is, let's think of it as it's called cognitive threat intelligence or threat analytics, right? So it's a cloud engine where Stealthwatch can send the flow data, it can send the ETA information, and there is some advanced machine learning algorithms over there which can predict if a particular host is affected or not, right? So that's like a cloud service, premium service. I mean, your Stealthwatch on-prem will still work without this, but if you enable this, you will get much more benefit out of your Stealthwatch. The other one is your ETA. ETA is something which you enable on the devices, right? And this is something Cisco recently, I think probably a couple of years back, they came out with this breakthrough technology, right? Where what they are trying to do is, this is called encrypted traffic analysis, because 70% of our traffic, especially the 70% of the attack vectors, are encrypted nowadays. So Cisco came up with this approach where they look at packet length, they look at the time intervals between the packets, right, and all of that, bunch of those things. So they do they look at all these various factors, right, run it through various models, statistic models, and figure out if a particular pattern which is seen in a particular packet is malicious. So that way they are trying to figure out if a particular domain is malicious, if a particular client is malicious, right? So ETA is encrypted traffic analysis, and this can be enabled on the devices, mainly on your Catalyst boxes, but we should have it enabled on my on our CSR as well, right? I'll show you what is the configuration that needs to be done. So let's do enable. If I do show run section ETA, there's nothing. Probably interesting. I remember turning it on. Let me try it once again. Let's do show run. Let's just do show run include and check if there is. Okay. Did I not enable it then? Interesting. Okay, so let's enable it. Probably I did not enable it. So give me 1 sec. It's surprising though. Let's give me 1 sec. Let me check show run interface gig 1. Oh, it's ET. Okay, there you go. So I think I was making a mistake. Show run section ET. Okay, there you go. Right. So we have something. ET, maybe ET dash would help. Yeah. So this is how you enable ET analytics. You call it as encrypted traffic analytics. You basically enable it, and then you define the IP flow export destination, which is nothing but my flow collector, the port number 2055, and you say ET analytics enable, right? And then you obviously go to the interface and enable it under the interface as well, right? There you go. You say ET analytics enable. So I think you want some kind of a security K9 license to enable it, after your evaluation period. Right now this router is on the evaluation period, so I can enable it here. Apart from that, maybe there's a very huge lengthy command which I'm trying to remember, with which you can figure out if your ETA is working or not. I think it is this one, so let's try that. Show platform QFP, I believe. No, I think it's show platform hardware QFP, and feature, maybe not. Okay, active feature. I don't know why they have made such a big command out of this. They should have kept it simple, right? Analytics, data path, and stats, right? I think that should work. Maybe not. Flows. Yeah, there you go, right? So this command kind of helps you understand if the ETA is enabled, and you can see some statistics. You can see the packets or the flows which is being sent out to my flow collector using this, right? So I think you also have something called runtime, maybe not, or flow, probably runtime. Let me just check that. Yeah, runtime. So this also tells you if it is enabled and if the state is initialized and stuff like that. So basically the ETA is enabled on my box, CSR box, and now on your SMC also you have to enable it. So to enable it on the SMC, what you do is, let me show you that. So you go to the central management. You'll have to do this on both the guys. I'll show it to you on one of them, right? So you can, when I say both the guys, I mean the SFC and SMC, right? So you go to edit appliance, you go to the general tab, and on the right hand bottom corner, you will find a checkbox here called enable cognitive intelligence. So you'll have to check it. Right now you can see I've already checked it, but if it is not, you have to check it and then you have to apply it, right? So you'll have to do that on both, on your flow collector as well as your SMC management console, right? So once you do that, you will be able to kind of send the flows out to the Stealthwatch cloud. You'll be able to send it out to the CTA, right? Cognitive Threat Analytics Engine, right, which is on AWS, and it will help you in figuring out more information about some of the alarms and alerts, right? So one way to figure out if it is enabled or not is to look at your dashboard, and on the left hand side, if you see this box called cognitive intelligence, it means that it is enabled, right? Cool. So that's it. The last part which I want to talk about is creating your own policies, right? Again, there's huge amount of stuff here, a lot of features to explore, but one of the important thing which I want to close this video with is looking at the policy management. So why do we want custom policies? Because if you want to define some policies of your own, right? If you want to figure out if some server in your network is trying to act as a DNS server, but it is not supposed to, right? If it is acting as an unauthorized DNS server and you want to figure it out, or if it is a rogue DHCP server, right, then you can define your own policy. How you define is pretty simple. You say create security event, right? This tab comes up. Now for your unauthorized DNS, so you can say something like, you can give the name unauth DNS maybe, right? Unauthorized DNS, and you'll have to select the host groups, right? So you'll have to select the subject host groups, and here you can select probably, so what is your whole idea here? You want to figure out which are those servers which are acting as DNS servers, but they are not supposed to act as DNS server, right? So that is your whole agenda here. So you can do something very simple. So you can see, you can probably go to by function, internet services, right? So I want to select the whole inside host, right? So it's like a ACL, just like how you define an ACL. So I'm basically telling my Stealthwatch that track all my inside host except the legitimate DNS server, which is this one. So I'm going to double click on that. So except this guy, apply. So I'm telling all these guys, and probably track the peer, what is the protocol we want to track, right? So you want any of these hosts is sending any packet, any DNS packet. What is a DNS packet? It's you can select peer applications, I believe. Yeah, there you go. So I can select peer applications, include, and what is application? I want to select DNS. Select both, apply, there you go, right? So I can create a rule like this. So I can say status okay, save. So when I do that, what happens is we have actually created our own rule now, right? It's called unauthorized DNS, and what it does is, you can again go back and check more. Yeah. So you can see in layman English, it has added the summary of this particular rule as well. It is telling when any host within the inside host except the legitimate DNS servers communicates with any peer host, right? Using the DNS or using the DNS protocol, right? Then alarm is going to be raised, right? So something like that. So you can create your own rules of this sort, and that's what we call as the custom policies, right? And that's very much handy when you kind of play around with the Stealthwatch. Alright, so that was my main agenda, guys. In this couple of videos, I wanted to cover how you configure Stealthwatch, how you, let's go back to my topology, how you set up a very simple Stealthwatch system, how do you enable it, how you configure it on your EVE-NG, right? And also give you an idea about why we need Stealthwatch, what is Netflow, what are the various components of Stealthwatch, right? Then we talked about how you enable Netflow, how do you enable ETA, and how do you operate your Stealthwatch. We looked at a couple of interesting dashboards, we looked at creating custom policies and so on, right? So thanks a lot for watching, guys, and hope that was useful. Do come back for more videos. Thanks, bye.